The St. Lawrence River Watershed is the main source of water for St. Lawrence County, as well as many of the neighboring counties in upstate New York. The watershed is one of the biggest in the state and drains into the Adirondack State Park. The Adirondack Park is the largest protected area in the United States, and it could fit the following national parks inside altogether: Yellowstone, the Everglades, Glacier, and the Grand Canyon. It is important that the ecological system in the Adirondack Park is preserved and closely monitored. In saying this, one of the main sources of water pollution in the St. Lawrence River watershed is the nitrogen and phosphorus levels. The concentration of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water have directly been related to the exposure of water to the byproducts of livestock in the region. To combat the increases in nitrogen and phosphorus, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, has implemented restrictions and guidelines that farmers need to follow to help limit the levels of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water. This is important to note because with the economy for small farms in its current state, any regulations requiring farmers to invest in a long-term system may push farmers out of business. There are efforts farmers can make to help reduce the amount of nitrogen in the streams and rivers, as well as the groundwater that don't require large investments. If farmers get pushed out of the market, the local economies will suffer and the local ecosystems will change. For the EPA and DEC, the regulations being implemented have to be balanced to protect both the taxpayers and the local farmers. These regulations will have to limit the amount of tax dollars being spent on water treatment and allow farmers to lower the initial levels of nitrogen and phosphorus in the watershed without financially crippling their business. Possible solutions to lower these levels have been researched to help both the farmers and taxpayers. Practices such as manure storage have proven effective but still require transportation costs. Cover crops, total maximum daily loads, awarding grants, and continuing research on both nitrogen and phosphorus are all steps being made by the EPA to help solve this problem. This is an important topic because clean drinking water is severely underappreciated, and the techniques that are being used here in the United States may one day be crucial to helping clean water in third world countries. It's also important not only for New York State, but the country to preserve our national treasures. Most importantly at this time is that we can help two parties at the same time. By learning how to prevent pollution and manage the pollutants in water, farmers can remain in business and taxpayers will not have to spend more money for clean drinking water. St. Lawrence County is known for its beautiful scenery and its vast amount of land that is used mainly for farming. There are 397,600 acres of farmland and 108,900 acres of woodland. The St. Lawrence watershed is approximately 300,000 square miles and encompasses 11,371 miles of fresh water and streams, by far the largest in the state. From the lakes, ponds, and reservoirs that qualified, this watershed includes 85,723 acres of surface water. Since the St. Lawrence River serves as the gateway between the Atlantic and the Great Lakes, there is runoff and air pollution in the region that affect the Great Lakes. As for the surface waters, they drain into the northwest portion of the Adirondack Park and the St. Lawrence Valley. Made up of mainly cattle farms, there are a total of 481 dairy farms, with 38,400 dairy cows that produce an average 631 million pounds of milk per year. In addition to dairy farms, there are 184 sheep farms with nearly 6,000 sheep, as well as 261 goat farms with nearly 2,200 goats. There are also 3,500 head of beef on other farms. Most farmers resort to watering their livestock through the use of nearby creeks and springs. This is the main reason why nitrogen and phosphorus end up in the water supply and affect the drinking water in the area. Since St. Lawrence County is located in a relatively cold climate, the opportunity for harvesting crops is limited. Dairy farms often look for other sources of food to help their herd maintain sustainable milk outputs. As of March 2015, there were approximately 1,600 farmers in the watershed region. With an average herd in northern New York approximately 120 cows, there was a lot of opportunity for water contamination. Since most farms are small and family-owned, the use of industrial water and feeding systems are not practiced because the operations are not large enough. Dairy cows are much thinner with bigger udders that produce more milk than a single calf would need. Their milk is accumulated and sold as just milk or for use in other dairy products. Beef cows are typically stocky and shorter compared to dairy cows, and are raised to breed and eventually be slaughtered for human consumption. These cows excrete numerous amounts of nitrogen forms of ammonia through their manure. which can harm water through rainfall or direct absorption. Phosphorus is a mineral nutrient that is necessary, but when discharged into water runoff, it will cause significant water pollution. Dairy cows produce high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus in the feces because they are often given more than necessary levels in their feed. With milk from dairy cows being the main source of income for most small farms, farmers tend to overfeed their cows with high nitrogen and phosphorus grain in an attempt to increase milk production. Since dairy cows need nitrogen and phosphorus to produce sufficient levels of milk, feeds with extremely high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus were being implemented to help cows increase milk production. The cow's digestive systems cannot retain the levels of nitrogen and phosphorus in the feed, and therefore, high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus reside in their manure. As cows graze around and near water sources, the fecal matter gets into the water system and soils, affecting both surface water and groundwater. Much of the animal feed given to the livestock is made of soy, which is an inexpensive source of protein and oil. Of all the ingredients that make up animal feed, the nutrients that exist in soy are most often recovered in fecal matter. The United States is the leader in soy production, followed by Argentina, Brazil, and a few areas in Europe annually by the ton. Other sources for high levels of phosphorus and nitrogen can come from genetically engineered additives in feed that contain enzymes, coloring, and various amino acids. Water quality in the St. Lawrence watershed is largely dominated by livestock, fertilizers, and additives that are not natural to the local ecosystems. The presence of atmospheric pollutants that originate outside the basin also contribute to the pollution problem. Nutrients, such as nitrogen and phosphorus, are a vital part of water-based ecosystems and are the key components in the growth of algae and other aquatic plants. An ecosystem with a sufficient food source and a vast habitat will allow the organisms within the system to flourish. When nitrogen and phosphorus levels begin to rise, the plants in the ecosystem begin to grow at a rate that cannot be maintained by the organisms within the ecosystem. When this occurs, the effects can often become irreversible. Nitrogen is deposited into the St. Lawrence watershed in the form of acid rain and fecal matter. Excess nitrogen can cause overstimulation of growth of aquatic plants and algae, which leads to blocking light in deep waters. Too much nitrogen in drinking water can severely affect the health of animals in the ecosystem and the people living in that region. When these levels of nitrogen get into the ground soil, even at extremely low levels, the effects can be harmful. Children can be susceptible to low levels of nitrogen in drinking water, called nitrates, that can lead to leukemia, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and numerous other types of cancer. In the St. Lawrence River Watershed, groundwater has become the #1 focus of reducing pollution. Since the watershed resides in more rural environment and the water collected in the watershed does not supply water for highly populated areas like New York City, it is important that the water meets the needs of those in the county. The majority of people within the river basin receive their water from underground wells. Since underground water sources are the most popular way to retrieve potable water, the soil pollution from livestock begin to take a larger role in soil pollution. Livestock and agriculture account for nearly 45% of all soil pollution in St. Lawrence County. The main source of the nitrogen and phosphorus in this ground soil pollution comes from a distribution of manure and runoff of fecal matter to pesticides from fields. St. Lawrence County itself has 23 municipal wastewater treatment facilities, including 2 in the town of Potsdam. It's hard to determine how much money is spent on the watershed each year because the overhead cost makes up the majority of the price, but changes in water treatment standards require changes in the facilities. Prices to building municipal water treatment facilities have increased in price by approximately 250% since 1978 and continue to rise due to new age technology. For the current status of St. Lawrence watershed, many different laws and changes have been made for water pollution in the St. Lawrence County and other watersheds throughout the nation. The Clean Water Act, CWA, was set to protect the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the nation's waters. The Division of Water upgraded the classification of St. Lawrence River Basin to 910 in order to meet the CWA goals from the federal government. The United States Environmental Protection Agency explains the taken measures by agricultural farms. From the watershed side, all organizations and governments work with the farm owners on playing the part of improving water quality. Other things that farmers have done is control the amount of nutrients, keeping a close watch on fertilizers using the proper technique and time frame throughout the year. Buffers are a great tool near water sources. Using trees, shrub, and grass, the nutrients are absorbed before it can reach the water. A big part of making a change is being able to see the results. After wastewater management has changed vastly throughout the years and regulations have been made for water quality with agriculture, the habitat for living animals have improved. The future looks bright, but it is important to keep up the high-quality care and preparations. As a concluding thought, not every hazardous material that enters a watershed can be prevented. As for livestock, efforts are being made to reduce the amount of pollutants in the water through inexpensive tactics that will benefit both the farmer and the taxpayer. By continuing to research the sources of pollution and new ways to prevent them, new laws and regulations can be established, keeping our drinking water clean and affordable. The St. Lawrence Watershed is not only important because of its size and location, but it also serves as a blueprint for other watersheds and, on a larger scale, even some counties. By testing new ideas and regulations, this watershed could serve as a staple for possible changes to New York City watershed regulations, greatly improving the water quality in the state.